fatto. Avevamo avuto una lezione su quello, poi abbiamo fatto una dinamica nella quale abbiamo mostrato di essere tutto diverso di quello che avevamo parlato durante la lezione. Quindi nella negoziazione, quando abbiamo messo in pratica, e tutti i nostri principi sono volati via, no?
Ok, quindi un po' legato anche alla coerenza, ciò che dichiaro, ciò che faccio, che spesso sono totalmente disallineati. Ok, interessante perché quando siamo in una situazione di conflitto...
Prova.
So, good morning all. I hope you enjoy yesterday afternoon in Rome and you eat well. I know it's full of tourists this period, so I hope you're trying to stay here in the city center and not sleeping so far away from here. Anyway, so this is the second day and we have other interesting presentation. I believe that we are all Nevila, would you like to say something or we can start? What do you think? Yeah, okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today we have two more presentations, as you know by the agenda. We have the European University of Tirana and the College of Professional Studies.
Good morning. I'm Anisa Jafere from the European University of Tirana. Before continuing with the presentation, I would like to say a few words about the project. The project started in January, February 2021, and it's amazing how much we have achieved so far. Certainly, the entrepreneurial university, which engages with the state institution, with civil society, community at large, and business, has changed, has taken a different meaning, and we know now a lot more that we knew almost 2 years ago. It's amazing how much work all the partner universities and public institutions that were all together in this project has achieved. We have all been involved in all the phases of the project. It started with the mapping of needs and problems that hinder the relationship of the university with society at large. And we proceeded, and we are happy that now in all, in all our university we have these hubs which will be dedicated to link university and research that is conducted in university with other partners, public institution, business, and community. And now, and with all the training and capacity building we have received online and on-site in Belgrade, Rome, and Munster, we certainly know more, and I believe will do and perform much better in the future. So I really thank all those who have organized these amazing activities, and we really are happy to be here today. We'll be presenting two papers today. The first one is an analysis of the tourist offering of Durrës and Vlorës to cities in Albania under the lens of tourist stakeholders. It's a handbook of how to conduct. I would say it's done really lega artis. It has involved focus groups and interviews with all the main stakeholders, tourist agencies, stakeholders who would use the services of tourism in these countries, public institution, and I would say it has been a really huge work, and I believe even the contribution is such. So I give the floor to Mikhail, who will introduce us and will present the paper. The paper is written, the research is headed by Ermira Chose, but behind her it has been a really very large group who has worked and contributed to it. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Professor Liza. First of all, just to make sure none of us here is Professor Ermira, we're just presenting the paper for her. Our paper comes on the second presentation. So let's start. I'll just make it clear. All right. So we'll be talking about tourism. Both papers, both researchers. One that we conducted ourselves, and for the first presentation, we'll be talking on the research that Professor Ermira conducted together with other colleagues. We will, of course, take any questions. On the first ones, fewer, because none of us were the ones present in the research. But please pay attention, because if you don't ask questions, I'm going to be asking you some. So. Okay, so tourism has become a buzzword, not only in the Albanian media, but also in the research literature. And one might rightfully say, why? Well, and it may seem weird because in the United States they're actually talking about space tourism, and we're still talking about tourism in using natural resources such as the beach or the mountains in Albania. But we have come just at the right place to speak of tourism in Rome. And just by you going around, you can see what tourism can do to a state or a country in general. Even if Italy would not have any other income, tourism is good enough. And we're looking forward to take some of it for Albania. Now, as we'll see later in the research, tourism has become a significant contributor to the Albanian economy, and it has grown in recent years, and so has the offering. But just to make sure, for the research, what it has done, we have divided it into the research questions and the motivation so you're clear in understanding it. So let's start about it. First of all, the research motivation. What was the motivation behind this research? Like, what pushed the professors to actually start this research? As I mentioned earlier, it has become a significant contributor to the Albanian economy, seeing that the mining industry and other industries that Albania relied upon were not performing so well, and tourism has gained a lot of traction. The study aim. What is the objective of this research? What is the target group? The target group for this, so this was done under the lens or the perspective, as you might say, of tourism stakeholders, which are the agencies, as the Professor Anisa mentioned. And it is done as a guideline, as a framework that could serve for the government to improve or use those strong points that the SWOT analysis of the research figured out. Okay, the research questions, there are 3 of them. We'll go through them as we go now. Okay, first of all, for the motivation. As I mentioned earlier, it has become a crucial resource to the Albanian economy and its development. And not only do investors, foreign and Albanians, but also the government, they do see a real opportunity in developing Albania through tourism. Just for some facts, in 2017, tourism in Albania accounted directly for 8.5% of GDP, or in actual numbers, $1.12 billion. And indirectly, for nearly 27% of the GDP of Albania. Now, that has grown in 2020 in the accommodation and food, just this sector, because the hospitality industry is quite big, as you all know. But this one is focused mostly on the food and accommodation industry, sector of the industry. It accounted for 17.5% of the entire sector. In general numbers, 17,773 units, or 10.5% of the entire national economic activities. Now, you may see the importance of why studying tourism is important. Some might guess that, hey, there are a lot of research papers on tourism, why should we proceed to do more? But in order to create the public policies for each country and to adapt to new challenges and new changes to the economy, to the global economy, we need new research papers to better understand each criteria and each sector. Now, the primary problem or concern that this research has presented or shown is the seasonality of the tourism sector, especially in Albania. Okay, the aim of this research, as I mentioned, is to analyze the tourist offering of two of the most popular counties in Albania in terms of tourism, Vlora and Durrës, under the lens of tourism stakeholders. Now, the three research questions that I mentioned. First of all, how is tourism offering of Durrës County according to sector stakeholders? Basically, what does Durrës, the county of Durrës entirely, have to offer to tourists? Is it enough? Are the services good enough? And we're going to be doing this. The professor did the same for county of Vlora. And the auxiliary questions that is very important and that actually came up during the research, as the professor told me, is why tourists or vacationers, because we have to make a distinction between the two of them, only spend a few days in Albania. They don't really come and stay there for weeks or months, as we often tend to do when we go abroad. Okay, for literature review, you're going to be able to review the paper and also have the presentation of whoever is interested in the research. Okay, first of all, let's make it clear. What is tourism offering? It is a combination of services and products presented for consideration to a customer, or I should say customer because client is not right. Clients are the ones who do not pay. To a customer who wants to make a leisure trip to Albania. And these services and products include everything that a country or a service provider uses to satisfy demands of a tourist, such as the climate or landscape, which are not actually offered by the provider but by nature. And Albania, as we will see, Albania does use these resources a lot, which is a weak point. Hotels, restaurants, entertainment, etc. Or what other components could be for this offering? Attractions, transportation service, destinations, activities. The methodology used for this research is qualitative analysis. And they have used primary and secondary data. The way they have gathered this data changes based on the type of research they have done. First of all, the primary data is done through questionnaires and interviews that were gathered from design interviews. Secondary data is basically from literature review, what we just saw over here earlier. And of course, most of the data comes from Instat, which the professors have regarded as a reliable source for data. Now, where was the primary data taken from? Through questionnaires based on works listed on literature review. Questionnaires were shaped like a semi-structured interview. Distribution of the questionnaires was based on a database of contacts provided by the authors themselves. And all of this and the results were derived through qualitative analysis. These are a sample of respondents for the Vlora County and the Durrës County. We see I don't know if it is, you actually see it better than I do here. Okay, as you can see, the highest share of the respondents is from private operators. Then we have also public operators, donors, NGOs. Oh, so this one is fucking up. And education institutions. Now, we come to the findings, where the professors did the SWOT analysis to come up with the results. So do you want to start with the good news or the bad news first? Bad news, okay, so we go with the weak points first. First of all, we have as I mentioned earlier, there's a limited offering here because Albania focuses mostly, the tourism of Albania is mostly focused on sharing the natural resources offered by the sea, the mountains, but it does lack an infrastructure or the framework to give value to these resources, not because basically we're only exploiting them right now. We're not using them as value to attract more tourists. So there's a lack of offerings for exploration of mountains, sea, culture, archaeology, gastronomy, etc. Now, there is seasonal tourism. Now, you may happen to see tourists all the time while you're in Tirana, but when you go to other counties, it changes a lot. Now, just to prove how correct this seasonality or how big of a problem it is for Albania, let me show you one thing from Google. I believe you're all familiar with Google Trends, right? Let's hope this works correct. Now, in Google Trends, we can search for the most mentioned words or how often they were mentioned and we can filter it by days or periods. Now, we're going to write in Albanian, turizmi. This is for the last 12 months. Now, let's see how does it change for years. Now you can see how it changes. This is the season where there are no tourists or nobody's searching for it. Then there's summer. And then there's again autumn. And then there's winter and summer again. So this explains it perfectly well. Seasonality of tourism in Albania. If we do this for Italy, it's pretty much the same all the time. That was good. Now, a limited promotion of local products. We're not really encouraged to do this a lot. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you have brought local products from Albania to show somebody here? Nobody, right? Exactly. I thought so. And we're not really keen into doing this in Albania either. It would be perfect if we did it, but we don't do it. And so that is a weak point, which will be seen as an opportunity to improve. Quality of service, which is the quality-price ratio. Tourist accommodation structures in Albania, they have been increasing, but they yet remain with a small to medium capacity. Construction standards are still vague. You may be surprised because in Albania we see a lot of new skyscrapers or high-rises, I might say. But construction standards are really vague. I myself am interested in this business because apart from this honorable profession that we all share here, we also have side businesses and a hotel is one of mine. And honestly, when you try to construct a hotel or a business, there are no standards you have to follow, or at least nobody is checking, enforcing them. So you may see one hotel, five-star hotel that is being built with up to the high standards, and you may see another five-star hotel that is not being built according to those standards. Yes. They are vague, so they're not enforced nor well known. So there needs to be a lot of work on that. Because the standards are there, just they're not well, just like with the local product. Now, and there's of course a difficulty managing the flow of tourists, because given the seasonality of the tourism industry in Albania, a lot of tourists, everybody comes crashing in summer and maybe winter in some certain counties. But for the counties of Durrës and Vlorë, it's during summer. And at these peak moments, there's overcrowding. And interestingly, I was reading a research last night on The Economist, and it mentioned that a lot of cities in Europe, like Amsterdam, Barcelona, I don't know if Rome was listed there, they were really upset with this overcrowding of tourists. But they do understand that they also need it. Now, let's come to the good news, the strong points of Albanian tourism. Now, foreigners do appreciate a lot, or foreign tourists appreciate the friendly behavior of Albanian people, the natural beauties that the country has to offer, traditional, and the price, quality to price ratio that we have. There have been openings of 4 to 5-star hotels that are part of well-known international brands. Like, I know we have Maritime Hotels right in the center, Intercontinental is coming, Hyatt is being constructed. I believe Hilton is there already, right? I believe Marriott is coming, so we're going towards the good stuff. And there's a cooperation through many tourist agencies, and what does this help? This helps with improving the diversity of tourists. We're getting tourists from Northern European countries, Belarus, Russia, Poland, Czech Republic, Moldova, not only, as one of the researchers mentioned yesterday, patriotic tourism. That is diversifying. We're getting tourists not only from Albanians abroad, but also from foreigners. And one of the strong points is that there have been improved standards related to the sea and sun tourism services, the beaches, HoReCa services, or extra activities that are done during the summer period. Now, for the findings, we go to threats and opportunities. It should be there. Now, one of the threats, and it is a very important one, is the low level of law enforcement. It is being improved on. Chaotic urban planning and development, tourism of other regional countries, Greece, Croatia, Montenegro, which are very well known and very well placed in the tourism industry among foreigners. Albania is trying to grab a piece of their share. Infrastructure problems, which are mostly through overcrowding, and which has to do mostly with really urban planning, road traffic, parking, and environmental management or waste management. Now, for the opportunities where we could improve a lot is the brand or fame of Albanian Riviera, especially in the Vlora County. The proximity to Tirana, the airport, and the port would be a great opportunity to focus on it, because Albania is a small country, but it has a proximity to the port, the airport, they're all very close by. Plus, they're building many other airports. Coordination of local government with the tourism sector and also coordination with the private sector, but that is on the recommendations list, which I'll mention later. The allocation of private beaches, improvement of and development of infrastructure. Now, one opportunity is a coordinated effort of central government and local government with tourism operators and various other projects, and it is a good opportunity to establish new destinations for tourists, not only the must-see one. Now, for the other auxiliary question, if you remember, why do tourists in Albania spend only a short period of time there, not stay for long? First of all, when we have the situation of Albanian tourists, is the low economic level of Albanian families. There's little diversity among travel providers. They all send you to basically the same destinations. There's a lack of chain of experiences for tourists, lack of guides or information for tourist areas. I happen to have traveled throughout Albania, some more international than Albania, but wherever I've been, it has been kind of hard for me to find a guide there. It has been improved, but not yet. Accommodation structures in the region are not designed to provide green, relaxing, or entertaining spaces. There are inconsistencies sometimes. The quality to price ratio that I mentioned, there are, of course, inconsistencies in some areas. The short seasonality brings a lot of pressure on services and public infrastructure, overcrowding during the season, as I mentioned. The pollution level for the environment, the sea, the beaches, the roads, this is a threat. As for Durrës, it remains a weekend destination throughout the year, actually. And foreign tourists are mostly one-time customers. Now, conclusions and then recommendations. According to the qualitative analysis, we conclude that tourist offering in both counties is limited based on these results. First of all, there are overlapping activities and responsibilities between the local government and the central government. Very often we see concerts happening similarly, and they overlap with the ones that the county of Vlora is doing and those that the small town in the county of Vlora could be. There's a lack of proper calendar of artistic and cultural events, tourist information offices, they should be more widespread. Municipalities continue to show incompetence in the management of public works. We mentioned here primarily waste management. Mentality and short-term approach of business operators in relation to quality-price ratio, and the establishment and implementation of quality standards is designed in such a way that the offering is limited. And there are difficulties of business operators in finding and retaining qualified human resources. Now, as this is not a problem only for Albania, but I mean, you've all been witness this summer that the airport of Heathrow in London was forced to close one terminal because of qualified human resources. But this is the most significant problem for Albania, for growing the economy. There's a lack of motivation for individuals to work in this sector due to seasonality, because they may work for 3 months in Vlora, but what are they going to do for the other 9 months? And there isn't yet a law or a framework that protects seasonal employees and better opportunities in neighboring countries. And now we move to the last part, which are recommendations. First of all, to increase the number of days tourists and vacationers stay, it should come through drafting of consistent policies and strategies, not only the micro but also the macro level for several years that would the government should look in the long term, not just short term, that would uniformly impact the sector and service providers. These are for recommendations for some of the most important institutions in Albania that deal with tourism. For the regional council, it should record, so create an inventory of the main tourist resources of each local government and formulate the tourist offer of the county. For the National Tourism Agency and the Ministry of Tourism and Environment, it should take the responsibility of promoting the offer in cooperation with the operators, not allowing the operators to serve as they wish, but to have a coordinated effort throughout the country. A new mindset in relation to the culture of collaboration between stakeholders, because it remains important to coordinate local government work with business operating regarding waste management, which is cleaning, awarding of private beaches, and which has been quite often a problem in Albania, improving and developing the infrastructure. The quality of service should be conceived and realized in accordance with international standards and should make tourism enterprises competitive within the region. The government should play its regulatory role in enforcing the law regulating informality and protecting employees by setting the law minimum seasonal working time. And the last part, which I mentioned, the qualified human resources to increase these capacities in HR management, marketing, and tour operatings. This is one of the most important recommendations. The professors put it last, but I would actually put it on the first list. Okay, thank you. We will wait here in Albania for this presentation. When I designed the presentation, I expected to be a lot more foreigners here. That's why I wrote it. We wait here in Albania. Professor?
Thank you, Michael. Indeed, the research has been done with the support of the Agency of Science and Innovation, of research, whose representatives are here. So you will see how all actors meet each other at different points, but all their efforts are now directed in the same direction toward the better cooperation and the development of the country. I really hope that policy-making institution will take in consideration some of the recommendations, and also those who work in the tourist section, so will have a better service. Yeah. And the professors involved have been also, there have been also a representative from the University of Durrës, so we'll see how everybody works and cooperates. It's perfect. Because we are partners, and sure. True.
As mentioned, we apologize for that, but we did not do the paper. We just presented it. This one.
No, Michael.
Okay, no.
Doesn't want to take more.
Perfect, thank you. Now for the other work package, Professor, thank you. I'm going to invite one of the students, Casey. No, a girl, thank you. Oh, yes. Are there any questions? Right. That's a perfect question. Is somebody more capable than I to answer this? Oh,
Convert everything in digital. They did some.
okay. Professor, want to share? Very good point. Thank you. I know on paper they have added a lot of funds. If they have actually done it, I don't know. Right, right. I believe the reason why we don't mention or refer to statistics a lot in Albania is because we generally do not trust them in Albania. But they are improving. Like we had an interview with the government. They in Albania. By the no, I do. I'm a computer scientist and an economist. I work through statistics. But statistics provided by Albanian institutions so far have sometimes been not very trusted. Don't know. Instant. It has improved a lot, right? As I was saying, in the interview with the governor of the Bank of Albania at European University of Tirana, we actually gave him an award just for this because they focus so much on research at the Bank of Albania and on providing trustful statistics. So I do trust statistics in Albania. Both. And they're both official sources. Yes. Okay, but if the lady has gone to the website of Albanian Customs, should she not trust it? Different data, I know. Whether we like it or not, we have to use them. We don't have other sources. Professor.
I'm the big manager, so I have to say about energy. To talk about energy. It was good that we have a second paper regarding tourism. Yesterday, Elena
Yes,
from
Professor.
Mediterranean
Yes.
University had a very detailed paper exactly related to tourism industry and how to create the center, the financial center to get students ready.
Yes, she's right there. And I referred to her. I referred to her today.
How to operate better to have more tourists in the country. And here we have today how we can manage within our research.
Yes. I did refer to her paper yesterday, today, patriotic tourism. Okay, so let's
She
move.
was the first one to present, and we are kind of still sleepy.
Okay, now, for this research, you can ask any questions. We did this ourselves. And it is not entirely finished, but... Okay, so ready? Here you go. Okay, so this research, the title of the research is Impact of Service Quality on Business Clientele. And the research was conducted by me, Mikel, and the students present here. They're all students of European University of Tirana. So I'll be speaking some, and they'll be speaking the most. Okay, so what is as I mentioned, I'm also interested in this industry because I'm personally motivated by it. But the motivation behind this research came from real life scenarios that both I and my team members have gone through. And we wanted to give an overview or a guideline to tourist operators or to the stakeholders that we have researched on this presentation. Okay, so the research question. What factors determine the success of guest recovery strategy after losing them due to service failure? It seems long, doesn't it? Let me break it down. Service may be good or bad. In our case, we have considered when service fails, which does happen very often. Now, when there's a failure in service, you receive from I forgot I mentioned. This research is entirely focused on the food and sector industry, bars and restaurants. So this industry within the hospitality sector. Now, when service fails, what would the manager or the staff try to do? They would try to recover these guests. They would try to ameliorate the situation, improve the incident. I believe you all, except for the two little kids over here, I believe you all have been present or experienced had some unpleasant experience at a restaurant or a bar sometime in your life. And it has been very important the way you consider it, whether you go back or not to that restaurant. And this is what we focus on this research. The recovery strategy that the manager or the staff or whoever is responsible for that business entity, the recovery strategy they use to regain you as a customer and whether they succeeded or not. Now, and we research which factor determined this the most. Now, the methodology used to this was the questionnaire. For the methodology, most of the work was done by the students who actually went to the restaurant, the chain of restaurants, and conducted the questions, the interviews with the guests. For this, the case study we've used for this was O'Leary. O'Leary, making sounds. And are you all familiar with O'Leary? It's a chain of restaurants and bars. Excuse me, kind of? It's regarded as one of the best in Albania. It's always subjective, but it is regarded as such. And the reason we chose O'Leary is because they had a different customer base, so it's not that one, but they have a very diverse customer base. They have including young students to the demographics is very diverse, as we will see in the results of the research. And also they are present in 3 different locations. So they fit perfect to the seasonality problem of the tourism industry we just spoke about earlier. They are located in urban areas and also at the beach and by the sea. Okay, now what are the fundamental principles before starting this research? First of all, what do we consider success in this industry? Do we consider success when a restaurant or a bar is able to get a customer or to attract a customer first time and suck as much money or funds from that guest, or when they are able to gain this guest as a loyal guest, as a returning customer? For us, success was being for this restaurant or let's call it business entity to be able to regain or gain, first of all, this guest as a loyal guest, as a returning customer. That's a success. Okay, from literature review for the research, we found out that from Belden Huntington, we guessed that only 5% of service providers, or the restaurant managers or owners, only 5% of them actually encourage guests to give reviews, be that online, be that on the spot. And negative reviews rarely get reported to the higher level of management who are actually able to do something about it. Guest recovery strategists should focus on credible relationships and use it to create loyal guests. So relationships between the staff. That's why human resources are such an important asset for this industry. Quick service and immediate apology are a necessity for guest recovery in hospitality industry. And relationship between staff and guests are of great significance in creating loyal guests. Now, we have taken these as assumptions and used them in our research. We did not, while conducting the research, we did not assume that, hey, do we have to assume that creating loyal guests is good for the business? No, we took that as an assumption and we proceeded with it. Now, the start, what is it? I'm rushing through this because I want to let the girls speak. What is the study focus of this? Now, on service quality, there have been thousands of researches, and we could go on forever talking about it. So we did not focus on service quality. We only focused on service failure. And I don't think, or we did not believe that service quality is the main factor that conduces or induces guests to be loyal guests. But what is most important is, which I have also highlighted there, is guest satisfaction, whether the guest leaves satisfied or not from this business entity. That's what determines whether there will be returning customers or not. Okay, now we proceed with the students. Joyce?
Yes, thank you. So what is service failure? One way service could fail is when there's problems with staff behaviors and attitude. That means when the staff is being rude or impolite, and there could be communication barriers between two parties, the waiters, the staff managers, when they fail to, let's say, kind of deal with the situationship that could be between the guests and between the staff members in the restaurant or a bar. This could come as a fact as well that staff members have not been properly trained prior to their working experience, as most staff members should have at least a few weeks of experience of internships before they work at a restaurant or a bar. The second fact that could lead to service failure is also body language. Body language, I believe, is a very important factor in Albanian culture, as a lot of Albanians have the ability to read gestures very well. When going to restaurants, cafes, and bars, if the waiters are doing certain gestures with their face or with the way they communicate with their bodies, that could come off as impolite or disrespectful. So the guests will know if that is being implemented, and their attitude will change, and that could lead to service failure. Another fact is, and the most important fact, I believe, is language. That could lead to service failure in a restaurant or a bar. This means that communication fails because of language barriers. That could mean that the guest fails to understand what the waiter is offering. There could be, it would be most efficient if waiters would be trained to speak different languages, so they know that if they have foreigners coming in their bar or restaurants, they know what language to speak to them, and there's no communication barriers. But not only that, that could also mean that there's an issue with language that might be using impolite words or, let's say, different types of sentences that could come off as rude, and the guest will be dissatisfied. And then another factor is bill mistakes. That is quite common in Albania, and that is another main factor that leads to service failure. This will happen often, and that will lead to dissatisfaction of the guest. They could be charged extra for a product or a dish or a drink that they did not choose or that they did not order. And that bill mistakes could be a common mistake because of a system failure. that could lead to technology, but it also needs to be fixed immediately, so there are no issues with or conflicts later on between the staff members and the guests. Another factor that leads to service failure is offering of products. That means that the restaurant does not have enough products in the menu. That could also lead to service failure because certain guests might have specific tastes, or they could be allergic to certain things, and that could lead to dissatisfaction of the guests with the food or the drinks that they might be asking to consume. And the last part, but it's also very important because it comes from the other side of the spectrum that leads to the guests, not the staff members. That goes towards the guests when the guests are dissatisfied and already have built up certain emotions before coming to the restaurant. So that means that they have their own feelings that they're not being dealt with. So even if you're being extra nice as a waiter, they still will have ways to complain. That could lead to service failure. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
So until now, we have realized and I need to present myself. Sorry, I'm Casey Bardi, student of European University of Tirana. So I'm part of this research, and my part I will show to you. As I was saying, until now we have realized and show to you what failure will be until now, and we assumed, of course, furthermore, we realized that what will be our guest reaction, because of course we analyzed until now what our service failure would be, and we need to know from the other perspective, which is our guests. Most of them, of course, react in different ways. One possibility will be that they will react on the spot, which is something that most of us, of course, have witnessed until now into bars or different restaurants. So the customer will react on the spot directly and switch to the competition so they can show you what their response will be. And of course, this is not very nice to witness. But also we have other kind of reaction, which we think it's a very good reaction. They leave after they're leaving the facility, they finish their dinner or their drink, and then they can give you the bad reviews on their social media or marketing, whatever kind of social media the restaurants possess until now. And this is something that should be okay for us because, of course, we learn from these mistakes or learn, and of course, the main goal is to satisfy the client at the end of the day. And so this is the best way we can learn this is the best way we can learn how the customer is feeling about our service. And of course, we have another possibility, which is not to react at all, which is something that we do not witness a lot, but this depends on a demographic and how people understand this kind of situation. It will be very good, so they do not react at all and do not make such skins on restaurants or bar or whatever they are, but in our case, in our Uldiri restaurant. And of course, they will not come back until in our restaurant again, but this is another case to study or to speak more about that, how we can fix this kind of react from our customers. We can continue with some questions that we have done, but our professor will explain to them.
It was your turn. Okay, first of all, before getting a little bit out of the presentation, before I forget, this is something we have to be thankful to U-SIA for, because it has brought together a pool of experts from very different fields. I'm from management, Casey's from computer science, Joyce is from communication, and Miriam, communication and marketing as well. So it has been of great advantage and use for all of us. Now, I'm going to rush a little bit because we're already over time. Now, a sample question and responses from the questionnaires. We conducted 2 questionnaires. We had over 500 guests asking. We asked in the restaurants. First, some of them were, how would you evaluate the variety of menu items? In the research paper, you have all the questions, all the questionnaires. It will be available for download, so it's all good. And some other question is the employment categories. This was a very important factor because we were able to analyze through the demographics, the employment, which guests were most dissatisfied, which ones were most satisfied based on their employment, their age, the profession. And the other their level of dissatisfaction, which we analyzed through a different analysis, because this was a qualitative research after all. Okay, so I give the floor to Miriam.
So we arrive at the strategy to be used. As we mentioned before, the profits lost when a customer is left unhappy are often underestimated and then undermanaged. So a solid company-wide strategy, a service recovery strategy, can help circumvent this source of profit losses. Because while some errors may be inevitable in the hospitality and service sector, dissatisfied customers are no joke. So this is why some service providers who may take the right consultation opt to take action in response to service failure. As it costs more to replace a client or to regain him than to retain one, with the expense of marketing being waked up and other ways to predict future prices, we then implement service recovery, which goes along with benefits. This can be by asking the right questions, by apologizing, by going to the root of the problem, by taking ownership of the problem, by compensating guests, by offering something extra, by following up or solving the problem. To ensure and give a rapid response to restore the harmony lost. We need to recognize, despite the best efforts that a company can do, some customers may be difficult to please, while others may outright abuse kind offerings from the service provider. And we arrive, as we mentioned, that it is guests who decide the effectiveness of the strategy that we use, because it's difficult to evaluate this type of services, as they are complex processes with many interdependent timelines and moving parts. They are prone to failure because they act on emotional impacts and always on the willingness of the guest to collaborate. And the guest's reaction to failure depends on demographics like age, their education, their employment, their income. So we recognize that service recovery needs a very systematic approach that makes it more likely to prove fruitful in implementing, especially with regard to cohesion and brand identity. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam, and thank you to all of you for bearing with us for this long hour. Okay, willing to take any questions? Thank you. Any questions regarding this research? Now, this will be very useful once we present it to O'Leary, the restaurant chain we conducted the research from, because they will be able to understand how and which is the best way to recover lost guests, basically. Lost in the sense of having unpleasant experiences, not physically. Okay, yes, please. Yes, of course.
So I think that goes regarding to the behavior and attitude. So the waiters should be trained to be willing to accept any offerings from the guests. So let's say if the guest is asking for the drapes to go down or the temperature to change, that leads to their attitude. So if the attitude is correct with the staff members, they will be willing to accept and to be nice and to be polite with all the things that the guest might be asking. So that could lead to no dissatisfaction at all because all their ends are being met. So I don't know if that answers your question, but what I'm saying basically is we only listed a few of the factors, but obviously there could be a branch or tree that grows with different dissatisfactions that might arise. But at the same time, these are mostly the 6 main factors that lead to dissatisfaction, but also more will arise. As long as there's communication and there's willingness for things to approve between both parties, the guests and the waiters, I think it could be resolved. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. One of the second point over here, one second, let me turn this on. Services are difficult to evaluate. Why? Because you're not being evaluated just when you are in the premises of the restaurant, but even after you leave, even after the guest has left, they are still creating a perception of how was that experience. That's why it is difficult to measure it. And we did not mention, as Joyce mentioned, we did not write or consider all of the things that may be of quality service, which I mentioned right in the beginning, because it could be a myriad of things, as you already mentioned, a lot more than we considered. But we focus mostly on just guest satisfaction, and we moved on from that. Now, yes, that's basically it. Perfectly well.
Thank you for your question. There are a lot of many ways how we can fix that, let's say. But of course, there might be application of first of thing from the social media the restaurant is using, because let's take the possibility that they will leave their opinion on our social media, on our application, which restaurants have, because also restaurants have many websites, and then you have a section where there you can leave your reviews. And for example, if you leave their email or name or last name, we can track a list of clients which they are not satisfaction, and of course we can make let's say an event or something else, whatever creative of the direction of the restaurants can think about it, so they can invite them again, then say here there are some improves at our restaurants, or some events, or many possibilities. But from the scientific or from IT perspective, there are a lot of from application, from website, from even a poster from the marketing side. It can benefit and can also change the opinion of our not satisfaction clients. There are a lot of ways, but let's first of all this research. Let's focus on tracking the problems that the restaurants can have from communicating with the clients, and then how to fix them. Okay, so let's focus on the research first of all.
Of course. No, thank you very much. We want these questions. How was it? Right. That could be a whole new research. That could be a whole new paper. Thank you. Oh, he answered it. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? All right, then. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Hello, everyone. Can I have your attention? Okay. Hello, everyone. As we all know each other, I'm Yola from KPT, and it's a pleasure for me to be again in front of you, as I was in May presenting the work done on work package number 5 together with Chamber of Industry and Commerce Tirana. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizers and the hosts of this event, Giuliano Marconi, and also I would like to make a huge thank you to all our partners that were part of this project, and thank you, Nabil, also. Secondly, I would like to present our team of students, because they are the most important part of the research that we do in our everyday life. So today with me here is Alessia, is Eltoni, is Casey, it's Vlasios, it's Mehdi. There are 5 students of ours today here with us. I would like to say that they have done a great job in both our papers that we are going to present for you today. I'm going to present the work package number 5, which is named Secondary Researcher. As we all know, this work package enabled businesses from Albania, mostly in Tirana, because that's where most of our universities are located, to exchange experience, skills, and stuff with universities part of the project and businesses from the other side. We would like to invite you a bit in our wonder world, as we like to call it, of professions, and I will try to do my best to give you a little glimpse of it. Okay, as we all know, this is a small presentation of what work package number 5 means and what it is. So I'm not going to stop because all of you has done the job by now. Here we have some steps that we followed, activities that we organized through this work package, together with Chamber of Commerce that we worked. The first step of it was the call that Chamber of Commerce launched for businesses so they can share their needs and their requests for our institutions. We organized also, each of universities organized roundtables with businesses, so the business were informed about this work package. The other step, the third step, was creating a pool with academics. This pool was very important for us. The call was prepared by Professional College of Tirana and was called and kept the slogan, "What's your superpower?" This was the poster shared with academic staff, and we called it like this because we all think that academic staff and teachers mostly have superpowers that need more space and right triggers to get activated. So that's why we choose this slogan for this. Okay, these are different pictures while working with work package number 5 with all the partners and businesses, online meetings. This was the presentation that we made in Rome, the first time that we were in here. And now I'll get more in the depth of the paper, of the research paper that we prepared. There were many pedagogues and teachers who participated and expressed their will to be part of this call. Most prominent areas for expertise within the KPT staff were mostly in area of digitalization, automatization, but our main focus was on air and conditioning technology. Yesterday, when we were walking through Rome and having great experiences watching the buildings, some of our students that are part of air conditioning program saw the Supreme Court, and they noticed that the equipments, air conditioning tools were outside of the building, and it wasn't a nice view for them. It catch their attention, and they mentioned that this is not need to be done like this. We can do it like this. And we proposed to them, so if they can make a diploma thesis for it, so they can share their information and their teaching in a diploma thesis so they can change the structure of things, and that was a great thing for us that they noticed yesterday. And our main focus of the research today is on air conditioning, as I'm trying to say. Hopefully I'm being understood. Since a great attention was paid to climate change development at the global level, and also by Albanian government in general and Ministry of Tourism and Environment, and also in the recent months, KPT has also faced a rising request for different businesses to address issues facing this industry and the potential for providing solutions. Because in our everyday life, we use equipments that that need gases, for example, a refrigerator or air conditioning, and things that we don't know what they do to the environment. They are not quite environment friendly, and we don't have a big information about it. And this is a big issue because also it is having a great attention by the government these days. So some of the businesses that this industry that expressed their needs to our institution were Shoshata Eftoye dhe Aerit të Kondicionuar, represented from Sokol Kupi, in Klima SHPK and Bira Tirana SHA. And regarding to that, staff and students of our institution decided that this would be our field of interest, and that we can offer a solution to the businesses. Because changes in this law touches every one of us. Our pedagogues that prepared this paper together with our students couldn't be here today because they had a public hearing with the government with regard to the adaptation of this law of fluorinated gases. So that's why it's us who are trying to present this paper to you today. I want to go more in depth about the methodology that we choose for this paper. The drafting and the writing of this paper until the creation of the final product was an intensive process, which was preceded by the clear division and distribution of tasks and responsibilities in the team. For a more efficient functioning, the team set up a working plan, the preliminary work with the collection, processing, analysis of information, preparation of the desk research on the market where the business operates and situation in Albania, followed by team meetings on site, visits to the business premises, and exchange of communications. KPT team paid visits, as I mentioned earlier, to the business in their premises, meet their staff, and check the current equipment in use. Because one important part of this law is not only that we change the gases that we use in our equipment, but we have, in some specific cases, we also have to change the equipment. This is a great, at great importance also. We need to well note that the law of fluorinated gases is not adopted yet, but it is undergoing the review and hearing procedures in the related commissions before being presented to the Parliament for approval. Legal changes alongside commitments by adhering to international treaties needed to be well understood and implemented from the related parties, especially the business industry that had a direct interest and impact. One thing that I would like to mention about this process is that not only we have to know what is good for the environment, not only do we have to change the equipment, but also staff needs to be trained. And who is going to train this staff? Who is going to prepare this new staff that work in the industry? I guess us universities need to offer our assistance to train the staff, since the business from its side is not quite interested to pay more money to train the staff in the short term. But in the long term, they need to do this because as the televisions change from analog to digital, as an obligation for all of us, this is coming also. We cannot stop this, and we have to be prepared for it. That's why we are going strongly in this. Some conclusions of this paper are that in line with the legal obligations, the related business should achieve the goal of reducing the emission of greenhouse gases, as well as introducing and observing safety standards related to new alternative technology and equipment. So this is our part in here that we can help our industry. This kind of market is changing in its everyday life. From tomorrow to another day, it is a rapid change. More and more government and business are also paying attention to minimize the effects on nature by means of legislation and different measures to be implemented accordingly. Most important measures in everyday work of related business, considering the above goal, would be, for example, staff related to this business in terms of technicians operating in cooling and conditioning should be acquainted and frequently trained on fluorinated gases, the impact they have on environment, health and safety, and novelties in this area. The two experts from Professional College of Tirana are training different industries and different companies regarding to fluorinated gases. So the work has started. KPT and its staff are having the relevant expertise, background, and available premises, is eager and committed to offer and host tailor-made trainings in accordance with business needs, market demands, and legislation updates. Of course, we can make this this problem part of other projects. For example, like Engine project, which is a project that mostly is focused on renewable energy. Everyday work activities performed by the employees of the related business, its promises are considered of interest to our students, to KPT students. Business is also invited to be part in a Professional College of Tirana, offering their open lectures. And in the same time, students are invited by businesses to be part of their internships or to be part of everyday visits. Although we have an office that takes care of relation between business and university, U-SIA project help us to make it in a more structured way, in a more organized way. And it's easier for us now, having these experiences, to adapt new projects with business, to organize more expertise and to share more good practices with each other. So our teacher can share their expertise, and it's a win-win from both sides. And our students get internships, and why not in the end? And they get employed in this type of companies. So I guess that's all from work package number 5. If you have any question, I'm freely to answer. I'm open to answer. Not very qualified in air conditioning, but I'll try to do my best.
Hello everyone, my name is Diana. I'm really glad to be here, and I'd like to thank you for having the privilege of your time. I really hope I will deserve it until the end. I'll be presenting working package number 6. Actually, when we were working on work package number 6, which is actually related to the policy cooperation through policy labs and policy challenge fund in the Professional College of Tirana, one of our colleagues made a joke. It is an old one, and perhaps you might know it. There was a man, he was not very rich actually, he was poor, and every day he was praying to God, please make me win the lottery ticket, please make me win the ticket. And he was kneeling and he was lighting candles, and he was always praying to God to win the lottery ticket. And God was listening to him and said, poor man, I get him, I know his concern. And he was listening 1 day and 2 days, and days were going by. He was praying and God was listening, and one day he decided to answer his prayers. And he said, man, I listen to you, I get you, I get your concern, but do you want to win the lottery ticket? Yes, said the man, I really want to win a lottery ticket so that I can become rich. Okay, said God, but please buy a lottery ticket first. So this is the same what we were doing with U-SIA. Either we can stay still and pray for things to happen, or we can open the way, make the way, or on the other hand, get out of the way. So this is what we were doing. We were seeing problems, we were seeing challenges, and instead of taking actions, sometimes we are standing still. This is what we wanted to change, and this is what we're trying to change with U-SIA, with working package number 5 that Yola presented, and with working package number 6 that I will present now. We all know work package number 6. This is the last presentation. We have already shared your work. With regard to methodology, we already introduced U-SIA to our team members, and also the Students' Information and Career Office, which was led by Ola by that time, together with the tutoring classes that we are leading with our academic staff. They were triggered by this working package number 6, and they decided to see that the policy paper we need to work on and the challenge fund to involve students was related to a very sensitive area. We are all private universities here and higher education institutions, and we all offer 2 years vocational education studies. I know this for Shkodra, I know this for Dursi, European University used to as well, and Mediterranean University as well did. So we set up a team which was composed both from academic, administrative staff, and students in the same way. We have a public roundtable with the public sector, which we need to co-shape the future in the quadruple helix. And we also participated in the consultation session on the roadmap of mutual recognition of professional qualification. You would ask why? Well, I'd like to make a brief presentation of Albania. We all know the country is on the good path toward European integration. On the European integration, and in the same time, its economy is based on tourism, like it is mentioned from the papers that we examined during these 2 days, in gas, it is also based in agriculture, etc. So there are 5 pillars where the Albanian economy is based. Albania actually used to have a very good history of vocational education. Yesterday, Shkodra showed us their history of university. They started as a 2-year institute. And this very good experience was shattered during the 90s. The transition was not easy for Albanian education system. After the 90s, Albania started to prepare its army of lawyers and economists and doctors. Me, myself, I am a part of the lawyers' army. But in the same time, we were creating a gap with regard to the professions, like the technicians operating in different areas. So, if we were trying to address gaps in the Albanian economy and to become to give productive students and employees, in the same time we are having gaps. And these gaps we are trying to fill with vocational education. But what happened actually? Although the older law of Albania, higher education, provided for vocational education and professional colleges, actually the other legislation in Albania was not very much welcoming. They were not very well aware of what is happening. And even with the new law on education, there is still such a failure. And what we are seeing that it is happening now. I'd like to mention that we do not face this situation with a private business. We only face this situation with the state business, with the state-owned enterprises. Our students who want to fill a vacancy in different state institutions, we are talking for technician, expert, we are talking about technician or expert, they are not eligible to apply because the Albanian government in their employment and salary criteria refers only to higher education, keeping in mind that we are talking only about bachelor. The same is also for the salaries. A person who is working in the state and they have a diploma, a professional diploma, is getting paid the same as he had only secondary education, not higher professional education. In the same time, there is low awareness from the Albanian families with regard to vocational education, and there is in the same time low awareness from the Albanian state institutions with regard to the higher vocational education. Every time our students are applying for such work, we get the same letter from the state institution they are applying. What are the professional colleges? And now we have prepared a copy letter and we deliver it to all the state institutions so that they can get familiar. And with the working paper, this is what we are trying to address. And this is the concern that we are trying to raise with the government. I think all of us have faced the situation when we needed an electrician, a plumber, or somebody to fix the refrigerator. And we are relying on those notes posted on our flats where you see a phone number and he said, I'm an electrician, call me, I'm a plumber, call me. We don't know how much of an electrician he is. We just take for granted that he is. We call him, he fixes it. We don't know how regular or quality he's putting in his services, but we take for granted that he did this job. So the problem is, it is not just about employing students in the right position with the right salary for the education that they have, but in the same time, it is about the quality of the services that we are getting for ourselves in our everyday life. And this is what we are trying to address with our policy paper. I am skipping the slides, so I suffer from the teacher syndrome. I talk loudly, we have body language, and it is difficult for me to sit down and talk. I wish I was standing up. So this is what we're trying to address with our policy paper. And the first thing that we thought, and we are ready to provide, and I think all the higher education institutions had put their forces together, is to provide a study to the Ministry of Education and to the Ministry of Infrastructure, and in the same time to the Ministry of Finance, which is in charge for the professions in the Republic of Albania, to create a study on the professions and how services are given. We have prepared already a list of related legislation. It is prepared from the students, and a very helpful advice were given for free from our alumni who have already tried themselves in the work in the labor market. So preparing a list where we can address and how we can intervene to the list. And beside the awareness-raising campaigns that are undertaken in Albania, related to tourism, etc., it is important to undertake such campaigns also related to education, because we will finish one day having engineers, having doctors, but we will not be able to have persons that are able to provide to us the basic service, how to fix a TV, a telephone, a refrigerator, or air conditioning unit. Thank you. If you have any questions.